Society this week. How much do you enjoy community media? What impact does it have on you, and does it give you relevant information? We also head to East Africa to find out how community radio has contributed to building peace in Kenya. Hello, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. You're watching Media and Society on the SABC News Channel, independent and impartial. This is where we give you a chance to take a closer look at the relationship between you, the public, and the media. I'm Peter Ndoro. It's good to be with you. Now, please remember, you can connect with us at any time during the program via our social media channels and share your views and concerns about the media and the issues that we'll be discussing on the program. Hashtag SABC Media and Society is where you can go. And you can also give us a call. And our number is Johannesburg 011 714 6841 or 6842. That number again, Johannesburg 011 714 6841 or 6842. Now, community radio is a sector that's grown in size and influence since its introduction when South Africa came into democracy in the 1990s. Today, there are well over 200 radio stations, with community television also making strides across the country. Let's not forget, newspapers also keep communities well informed about happenings in their local areas. Sadly, one of the biggest challenges has been sustainability, and many of the community media have had to shut down because of financial problems.
Community radio is very important as it serves as a critical voice in society. Community radio in South Africa began in 1994 when ICASA, the country's broadcasting authority, began the continuing process of assessing and granting license applications. Today, there are over 100 community radio stations in all 9 provinces, which are licensed to broadcast, which includes ethnic and religious stations.
We use community radio to communicate, to solve our challenges, to talk to one another about whatever entertainment needs are, whatever challenges in society are, and we try to collectively resolve those challenges working together.
Sadly, some of these radio stations are not doing well due to high operating costs, challenges with generating revenue, and a lack of financial management skills at community broadcasters, which result in the difficulty of generating content.
Because community radio is not annually funded or receiving a consistent grant like other entities, you find that it has to rely on advertising. And some of the radio stations are based in deep rural areas where the community itself is not economically viable, but the community needs this platform in order for them to be able to communicate. So you find that there is a challenge in terms of getting a grant because it would have to apply for this grant. The costs of running a community radio stations, whether you are in a rural area or in an urban area, you still need to pay the same cost as it relates to transmission costs, electricity costs, and others.
However, some of these radio stations have been more successful than others. Recently, Radio Kwezi, which is a Durban-based community radio station, was nominated for the work they do at the Radio Awards 2021 as the best radio station in the community radio category.
Very important is that a radio station concentrates on the needs of the community. And one of the recipes is not only to have good news, but to focus and zoom in of the challenges a certain community has. And Radio Kwezi has done that over the last 26 years. And there are very different challenges a rural community has, like Radio Kwezi, compared to one in a city.
Some of the responsibilities of community media is to ensure that their listeners are effectively serviced, and other radio stations have found innovative ways around this.
Kwezi managed to establish a very good relationship to its listeners. Not only that listeners take actively part in the broadcasts and phone in, but especially with our listeners club that we have, which has got more than 7,000 active members in more than 40 branches all over our broadcast footprint. And if I say active members, I mean that these members meet together, of course not during Corona times, but usually they meet together and they do things together. They tackle challenges in their specific area, and they use Radio Kwezi as means to get information.
With South Africa heading into the local government elections, community radio is now more than ever needed to provide information that will allow listeners to make informed decisions around who they will eventually vote for.
In society, it is able to assist the communities in holding the leaders accountable. Because especially during elections, you would see political parties or the wannabe leaders of society coming with different manifestos and promises. And immediately after elections, they do not deliver on the promises that they gave to the communities. So community radio is there to be able to act as a platform to hold those leaders accountable.
That report was put together by producer Luavela Jongilanga. Now, so the issue is that community media's role is often different from that of commercial or mainstream media, but to the public, sometimes the two compete with each other for attention. And to talk a little bit more about community media and its roles, I'm joined now by my guests. Let's meet them. We've got Amy McGill, editor of the Northcliffe Melville Times. Good morning to you, Amy.
Good morning, Peter.
And welcome to Feroz Sheikh, news editor at The Voice of the Cape. Top of the morning to you.
Yeah, good morning, Peter. And as we say in Islam, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much. And to Mpho Mhlongo, who's the CEO of Jozi FM. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Peter, and the other guests. Good morning.
All right. I look forward to our chat now. And just to remind you at home, we want you to be part of this conversation as well. So please dial 011-714-6841 or 6842. That number again, Johannesburg, 011-714-6841 or 6842, so that you can be part of this conversation. And you can also find us on social media. Please be part of this. We want you to engage because this is really all about you. But let's go back to our guests, and let's start with Amy, because we were talking about radio on that package, but print is also very important and very key. And I want to start with Amy, who was at Northcliffe Melville Times. All right, let's go to Amy. Amy, a very good morning to you.
Morning, Peter. How are you?
Not too bad at all. All right, so print. You've been around longer than everybody else, actually. You know, we talk about these community radio stations. But what I want to do is ask all of you the same question. And the first one is the role of community media that sets it apart from mainstream national media, perhaps.
So I think that community media is so important because we're on the ground, we're talking to people. You know, we don't wait for issues to become massive, for them to become national issues before there's something that we address. We address them, you know, we can help people with small issues that they have that are affecting their everyday lives. perhaps community media doesn't always focus on what's happening in the lives of Cyril Ramaphosa or things like that, but it's things that affect the everyday lives of our community members. And that's where we can step in, that's where we can help, that's where the national media doesn't really play a role. So that is what's so important about community media and what sets us apart.
Feroz, let me turn to you. You're a Muslim radio station. Does that mean it's about religion, or is it about community? What is it that sets you apart?
Well, as a Muslim radio station, obviously our main mandate is to cover the Muslim community in our province, Western Cape, Cape Town, but also we cover the broader community as well. So we don't only concentrate on Islamic news, we cover all aspects of the media. All right, and you've been at this for quite some time, haven't you? Yeah, well, we can proudly say that the Voice of the Cape is the first Islamic radio station in South Africa, established in 1995 at the V&A waterfront. Over 100,000 listeners came to that opening day. That's how big the radio station is. We have over 200,000 listeners, so we play a huge part in Cape Town. All right, we'll talk a little bit more about influence in a short while. Mpho Mhlongo, CEO of Jozi FM. What does community radio mean to you? Because some people might think that all it is that you've just got a local license, but you behave very much in the same way as national radio stations. What sets you apart?
I think at the end of the day, radio is a radio, because when people tune in, they expect to hear quality as much as it should be on any other radio station across the board. I think the difference becomes then when they want to hear what is happening locally in terms of development, in terms of the issues that are affecting the community where they reside. So the difference between us and other national radio stations is just that the people want to know and want to hear their own voices. So a community radio station allows the community to hear itself. It allows the community to know what are happening, things that are happening within their own communities. So that's what sets us apart. Because something that may not be of newsworthy, to a national radio station, it will definitely be newsworthy to us as a community, because it's a community residing. If a child gets lost, it is a community that must definitely stand up and look for that child immediately, which may not be something that has anything to do with a community that is 400 kilometers away from us. So therefore, as a community radio station, it's essential that we look into the development and people hearing their own voices, people telling their own stories, people listening to themselves, and an opportunity for people to use this platform to grow, to develop, to grow their businesses as well, because they are not interested in a person who's living in Cape Town to buy what I'm offering a bunny chow in Zola for that matter. So that's the difference between us and commercial radio station.
How do you keep in touch with what the community wants to hear, listen to, and debate? Is it, and I guess one of the strands must be talk shows, but how else do you do it?
I mean, fortunately now with growth in your social media, it's just one of the platforms that is used to engage our community. Secondly, obviously, we are supposed to hold meetings twice a year at least. We do that every year. So we have these meetings where we invite a community, where we sit and we have, we engage each other on the programming, how are we doing, what we're supposed to be doing, and what is missing and what they would love to hear. But unfortunately, we were disturbed in the past year by COVID. That really stopped everyone from, having meetings and engaging further. But social media has just been one part that we've continued to use to engage with the community, to know what is happening, to understand. Some people may not even have an access to an email, so to speak, but they use their WhatsApps, they use their, Facebooks, their Twitters, and any other platform that, is available for them. And we always respond to that, and we always engage using such platforms to ensure that we are relevant at all times. But that is why communities, when something happens, they're able to use such platforms to communicate with us quickly so that we can attend to a story. Remember also, we do not necessarily see ourselves as a radio, but we are also part and parcel of the civil society. So we participate in the activities be it, gender-based violence. We participate in saying we stand against it. People have seen us going to court, standing with placards, and they'll say, but you are ready, you're supposed to be covered. But we're saying, this is our community. We are part and parcel of this community. So if a woman is hurt, we are hurt as a radio station. So for us, we just don't see ourselves as just covering news, but we see ourselves as part and parcel of the civil society.
All right. Amy, how about you? I mean, if you're on radio, it's quite easy. Your listeners will give you feedback straight away. How do you keep in touch with your readers and make sure that your content is relevant to them?
So our readers give us plenty of feedback as well. We are also very dependent on social media. Obviously, it's our biggest communication device. I mean, we post stories throughout the day on all our social media accounts, and people respond, people interact with us. Also, the fact that we have teams and we're out there and we're in the community, we're talking to people all the time. And we really do, we listen to what people have to say, even if we're not talking to them necessarily about a story, even if it's just our journalists, they all live in their areas. So they're all out there talking to people. They're always asking people, what is it they want to see more of? What is it they want to see less of? So it's that being on the ground really and talking to people and listening to what it is that they have to say.
I went onto your website this morning and there was a story that had just been uploaded 43 minutes earlier. So I guess also you've got the print version that drops off at home, but you're also interacting in real time, which is quite important nowadays.
It is important. It is a little bit of a challenge for us. Obviously, resources are always a problem. But it is something we do try. We do try to be up to date with what's happening all the time. Our journalists do work on the weekends. They are always out there. They are always ears to the ground, knowing what's going on. And we try to get it out there as quickly as we can because that's what our community wants from us.
Yeah. Feroz, this program is called Media and Society. So I'm just wondering, do you find yourself in a situation where people check on you first to find out what's going on locally? Let's say there's an issue and they want to get more about it. Do they log into you first?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I mean, we play such a huge part in the community, especially when it comes to Islamic news. They contact the station, like Amy and my colleague from Josie FM has said. Social media plays a huge part as well. So we're very active in terms of all of, just to give you an example, we've got 116,000 Facebook followers, 24,000 on Instagram, over 7,000 on Twitter. So we have to embrace these changes so our listeners engage with us regularly to find out what's happening, and we are one of the first ports of call for them to get that information.
All right, so a little bit later on, we're going to see and hear about a case study in Kenya where there was post-election violence and they used community media to calm social tensions. I wonder if local media here in South Africa, and you perhaps, often engage in work about social cohesion. I know that in the Western Cape you didn't have the looting, for example, but where there are issues, do you get involved and try and calm situations, contribute to social cohesion between cultures, between religions even?
Is that
That's for you, Feroz, yes.
Yes, absolutely we do, Peter. We have to, as a community station. I mean, that's part of our job as the media, so we have to do that.
All right. Mpho, we had these lootings in Gauteng and they were quite bad. Is this an opportunity for community media to appeal to the community to say, let's not do this?
Oh, definitely, Peter. It is just one of our responsibilities. Remember, I said we are just not here to cover the news, but we are part and parcel of the civil society. So therefore, it is essential for us as a community radio station to ensure that we really participate in encouraging and educating people to understand in terms of business what it means. To the point where we are currently working on a project of helping smaller sponsor shops, those who have shut down. We're going to give them stock a bill of 20,000 rands each, which they will just really impact that business. So it's essential that as a community radio station, when we are able to fund, we plow it back to the community by firstly ensuring that we are after the incidents that happened, we still re-empower people by saying, let us go back to businesses, reignite them, let us get them going and running once again, because it has taken us many steps back to this, the looting of the shops and business and close. Some of them, others are, may not come back. So as a radio station, the role that we play therefore is to first still continue with the education. But over and above that, we're not going to stop there. We're going to be funding some of these smaller businesses to develop 20,000 rand each with stock so that they go back to business and so that their lives go back to as normal as possible. Because it would not help for us to just talk about it and do nothing thereafter.
All right, we're going to carry on our discussion and talk a little bit more about the impact of community media. And also up ahead still, we're going to go to Kenya and listen to your voices. But I'd like to hear you on our lines, so please give us a call. We'll be back right after this break as we continue to explore community media. What does it mean for you? Do you listen to community media, read community media, engage with it? I want to know from you, and we actually went out on the streets of Joburg to find out what some of your thoughts are. All of that still to come. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Media and Society on the SABC News Channel. And we continue with our conversation on community media, how it relates to society. That's you and I, actually. And remember, you can join the conversation using hashtag SABC Media Monitor. Also, phone us on 011 714 6841 or 6842. And we're going to be going straight to our callers just now. But first, we went out onto the streets to find out which community media you are engaging with, consuming and enjoying. And this is what some of you had to say.
I listen to community radio in my area because it is an essential part of the South African broadcasting landscape despite the rise of social media. It brings validation and diversity to listeners.
I love watching Soweto TV because it's got massive music.
It also keeps me updated about everything that is happening in the community, if there are campaigns, new projects.
The reason I listen to Jozi FM is because I would like to know what's going on around my community. And also, I like the music that they play on Sundays.
I listen to Jozi FM because mostly it covers local news and you get to understand what's happening more in Soweto and in Gauteng than all parts of the world, and and this is where I'm living, so it's important to know that.
I do play our local radio station sometimes, and I also enjoy their content. But I hardly ever read our printed media because it's not very easily accessible to me.
We continue with our discussion around community media and society. I've still got my guests with me, but let's start with you, the callers. I believe we have Njabulo, who's in Umzinto. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Peter, for taking my call.
All right. So, Njabule, which community media do you listen to or consume?
Locally, within my community, we've got two radio stations that we currently listen to. It is Doni Community Radio Station, which is formerly was Izigo. Are you still with me, Peter?
Yes, yes. And what do you enjoy about it? What difference does it make in your life?
Well, they play local music. They promote local artists in most cases, as well as they give us current news within the area. So it tends to focus to what you really, really have to understand within your community. That also includes one of the radio stations called Radio Sun and South, which is in Potchefstroom as well. So those radio stations for us, at this point, they provide us with information relevant to us. Anyway, indeed, we need to hear international news, obviously other news that happens throughout the country. But when you want to zoom in within your local or within your community, then we tend to get the news at the first glance.
Fantastic. Thank you so much indeed for calling. That's Njabulo. Let's go to Luvuyo, who's in Johannesburg. Luvuyo, thanks for joining us. What do you want to say about community media?
what I would like to say is the role that it plays, especially on training the young graduates, the unemployed graduates. It plays a magnificent role in providing much more information, even on how the states operate, or three arms of the state. It gives more information and dissemination of information to the small entrepreneurs, development of businesses in our communities, and also have got an element of training the young ones. It does a very much magnificent role in terms of dissemination of information internationally and understanding how do we need to look after our society. I've seen this on 1912 online radio as well. I think they must be given some much more spectrum in South Africa.
All right. Thank you so much, Luvuyo. I really enjoyed that call and the role that community media can take. Let's start with Amy, because I've got an interesting question for her. Earlier in that, the first caller talked about training and developing talent. Is that something that you're able to do on community media as well? Because we need stepping stones often. I know Paul, I'm going to talk to him just now. I know a lot of the DJs started on their station and they're on national stations now. Do you find that a lot of young cadets come through your system?
We definitely do. We definitely have a lot of people coming fresh out of varsity, fresh out of college. They come and they spend a couple of months with us, a couple of weeks with us. I think what's nice about learning on a community media platform is that the editors and the managers have a little bit more time. They're able to show the entire system from start to finish. You know, everything happens in one small building, in one little corner, and you can see how the process starts, how the news gathering, how we speak to our community, and then going through, we can train them on their writing skills and through to the sub-editing. And I think there's a lot of room for people to grow and a lot of room for people to learn in our newsrooms.
All right. And Paul, I know that that's another big area for you, growing talent, nurturing it, even though they get stolen away from you for bigger station. But I suppose this is part of developing the community, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It is definitely. I think this has been happening for the past 26 years of our broadcasting, that, you know, we'll have a lot of people coming through, learning a skill and moving on, you know. Yes, they get stolen, others we don't want to lose, but it's part of growth, you know, that people have to move to bigger and better grounds. But also it's essential that they also get an opportunity also to, you know, plow back, you know, come and train and come and give information and come and give the young ones an opportunity and actually you know, ensure that they understand how the media sector works, because it's not really about just being a celebrity, but it's about work that you do. It's about developing. It's about how we ensure that our community grows, because we cannot grow without the community. Hence, when we were awarded the third coolest radio station in the country by Sunday Times, we were like, wow, last year. And this year, on the 29th of August, we woke up to the news that Press were like, you know, second favorite radio station, you know. So for us, it says there is something good that we are doing. There is something, you know, good that we can also continue to do in ensuring that we give young ones, but also give our community an opportunity. Because it's really not about young people only getting training. You know, there's also elderly people who are contributing to radio. So it is essential for us to ensure that we give anyone within our community an opportunity to learn radio, you know, to participate. You know, people do recordings right now with the phones that we have, the cell phones. People participate on radio. People record. People, you know, send in voice notes. So it's just wide open to any member of the community who can learn, you know, who can also ensure that imparts the kind of knowledge that one believes can help grow us as a society within our footprint.
Yeah. Feroz, I really want us to understand the impact of community media. And I just wonder if over time, have you been able to track and say, we did this and this helped change society or help frame society or contributed to society? Feroz?
Okay, I'm here. I was just muted.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. You know, we play, as I said earlier, we play a huge part in community broadcasting, community media. And as an Islamic radio station, it's vital that because we have listeners out there that rely on us so much. So, to answer your question, it's all the time that we're making a difference in the community.
So, one of the issues that polarizes Jewish and Muslim communities is the situation in Israel, Palestine. How do you manage that to try, bring peace between these communities? Because I see it often playing out time and time again, whether it's about gym issues or whatever it is. How do you help with this conversation?
Well, we have various shows that bring out the content regarding the Middle East crisis, the Middle East issues. We have a current affairs show in the afternoon drive time, which concentrates a lot of international stories and national stories, and we interview a lot of international people, politicians that are part of this, and we try to get the message through these interviews and the news that comes through from those platforms through to our listeners. We've got a very experienced drive time host. The name is Shafiq Morton, who is a very experienced journalist. He's been in the Middle East. He's covered all the stories in Palestine, in Egypt, in Libya. So, with his experience and all that we do, we try our best to bring in the news to our listeners so they are aware of what's happening out there in the Middle East.
And it's not biased.
Oh, definitely not.
Okay. Amy, let me come back to you. And this is probably a question for all of you, because at the same time as you're trying to serve your communities, you have to be sustainable and you have to find revenues somehow. Is this a challenge, particularly when you're focused on a very smaller community than perhaps your national counterparts?
It absolutely is a challenge. It's a huge challenge for our teams. It's something that we work day in and day out to try and overcome. COVID hasn't made that situation any easier. Obviously, the businesses in our areas are struggling, and they're obviously struggling to spend money on advertising, which is what we depend on. So it is difficult, but it's something, we're lucky in that our managers see the value in what we do, and they're prepared to push through, and our teams are prepared to push through. So it's something that we will continue to do. We will continue to fight the good fight and hope that things get a little bit better in the future.
And you stay true to the stories and the work that you need to do. You're never tempted to start to look for things that might draw commercial interest?
No, we really do stay true to it. Obviously, we have to look at things like advertorials and things like that. They're always clearly marked. People always know exactly what it is that they're reading and whether it is paid for content. That is an important part of what we do as well. But when it comes to our general news gathering, no, we really do just do what we do. Our journalists know the line. They know what they can do. They know what's right, what their community needs, and that's what we stick to. All right. So we're going to speak to Mpho just now because I know Josie FM has had its moments over time. But we've got Qondile, who's in Mangaung. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program. What would you like to talk about when it comes to community media?
No, thanks, Peter. But my focus would be more on radio. Community radio are powerful tools within our, the communities and so. But in 2013, in the Free State, we encountered a station that was banned somewhere in Sasolburg. Part of the allegations was that it's fooling the community, it's favoring one side of the community, and so on. Recently in Mangaung, we had a total shutdown, and a part of the blame was squarely laid on a community radio station to say, why do you give these people who are shutting down the platform to communicate against the government? And later on, there was a stage, I don't know if it's in the Eastern Cape, where where a community radio station was blamed for favoring government.
Right.
Now, I'm saying those intricacies are problematic in a sense that at what point do you get the community radio station to be neutral, to be delivering community news and so on? Because failure for community radio station to play that role of being neutral, informative, and so on, that could be a problem to a particular community. So for me, especially during this time of elections, Peter, community radio stations are supposed to be playing a pivotal role on talking about issues of election, individuals who are standing and so on. And this is a challenging time for them, but I would want to hear what is Mpho going to say on that.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much indeed for coming through. That's Kondile, who's in Mangaung. Mpho, you've heard it from the listener there, the viewer, and they'd like to know from you the role that community media plays, especially as we start to work our way to the local government elections.
Indeed. I think the biggest challenge that we're going to have in this year is that obviously with COVID-19 not having an access to like your community halls, because normally what we would do would just invite candidates to come and present their cases in front of everyone. So it goes live on radio, we do it at a hall, so people can have an opportunity of asking questions and engage politicians or people who are looking forward to be leaders in the different communities. So for us, COVID-19 has dealt us a very big blow because we'll not be able to do that. So we are going to be coming up with ways and platforms to still engage and giving each political party or even the individuals who came in individually an opportunity to express, to tell us who they are, what they do, so that we do not want to find ourselves, been told that we favor one over the other. But it is only fair that we really give each political party that is going to be contesting in our area of coverage a fair chance, so that we are ensuring that at the end of the day, when the results come, people do not point a finger at the radio station. So the role of a community radio station is really to educate people, for example, starting with just people registering. It is essential that community radio stations start doing that without having to also just say we need to be paid. Yes, stations need funds to run. So, but also it is essential that we remember that we have a role. When we started the radio stations, it was for developmental purposes. So elections are part and parcel of that. So education, it is part and parcel of that. But also it's essential that we give these political parties, as I was saying, in your area, an opportunity, to express and tell the community what they're going to be doing, their manifestos, how are they going to deliver. So it is essential that we balance that out. But also there's a question of money again. We need to be able to say what kind of training do managers have in the radio stations, so that they understand the hows, the do's and the don'ts, so that we do not find ourselves, wanting. You'll be aware that some of our radio stations were unfortunately attacked during the looting, and because it would be those thugs who do not understand the role. We were perhaps lucky, but because of being rooted within the community, there were shops that are within the complex that we are that were looted, but they opted not to loot us because we believe that they understand and believe our role within the community. So because I think they felt that they needed to also protect us against those who may have looted. So we really had an opportunity of seeing people saying, you're not going to touch Joseph, So for us, it just shows also how much rooted we are as a community radio station, which is something that is possible with radio stations all across the country to really, because remember, we are based within a community. So it is easy for us to be targeted if there needs to be. So, but if we ensure that we do the kind of programming that people take ownership of, therefore the community will know that this is our entity, we own it, we shall protect it by all means. But also over and above that, with elections looming, it is essential that we really ensure that we have a good plan as a radio station to ensure that we do not find ourselves wanting.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about elections, broadcasting and elections stories in print media in a short while. But what I want us to do is go to Kenya now, where There's a vibrant radio sector there made up of public, community-based and faith-based, as well as international stations. And with a population of around 47 million people, access to radio is actually pretty high in the urban and rural populations. At about 95% of people having access to a radio at home. And over 50% of Kenyans get their news from the radio, especially in the rural areas, making radio a powerful and influential medium. Now, community-based media has been used as a force for political gain sometimes, and sadly also at times fanning the flames of violence. Now, senior lecturer in philosophy and media studies at the University of Nairobi, Dr. Jacinta Mwende Maweu, spoke to me about how community media was used as a force for good, especially following the deadly violence after the 2007 elections in Kenya.
The community media, or the quasi community media that we have in Kenya, is free, completely free of political and economic influence, because, as I said, like the quasi-community radio stations that we have in Kenya, they're part of the Royal Media Services. And in fact, in the 2013 elections, the owner of the Royal Media Services came out openly and on national TV and declared his political stand, whom he was supporting. So then that political bias was likely to be reflected in these quasi-community media. When we have tensions, and a good example, we do have real live examples where community media in Kenya have played a role. It was worst, like within the city, Nairobi. It is usually worse all of the times in the informal settlements, because that is where we find everybody. And of course, you do also know that is where politicians are more likely to excite passions for people to rise against each other. And also, Kenyan politics is highly ethnicized. So most of the times, these tensions, these conflicts they have deep ethnic overtones. So we do, during the post-election violence in Kenya, 2007, 2008, we had in fact, they were formed at the heat of the violence in the two largest slums in Nairobi, the Korogocho slums and the Kibera slums. So in the mix of this, I think out of a desperate attempt of everybody to cool the tensions, Pamoja FM which was there has been corruption, because of course after some time they need money to survive. So then there is infotainment and advertising to bring. But at the time that they were formed, in 2007, 2008, it was all about cooling the political tensions, easing tensions between the warring communities. So we had Pamoja in Kibera, and we had Court FM in Korogosho, and indeed they worked. They did play a positive role, because what they did was to bring together. They had talk shows where the radio presenters would directly talk to the people, tell them to cool down, try to bring some sense, tell them that we've always lived together. Why is it that during elections, this is not our war, this is not our fight, because it's only during elections that you see members of different communities rising against each other. When there are no elections, nobody cares. You meet someone, it doesn't strike you as odd that this person is from a different community. People live harmoniously. So they try to advance that narrative, and it worked. So that did work. And of course, even during that time, the mainstream media also followed, seeing that, and they also called for peace, and there was peace. So it can work because of the fact that the community media is close to the community, and especially if you are talking their language, they can identify with you. And the fact that, most of the times, focus, when people talk about media and violence, conflict and peace building, there is an overemphasis on how media escalates, whether it is community media or mainstream media. But then, the same power, since we do also know that, it is also on record that the same community media were used to escalate violence during the same time. And we even had a journalist who was taken to The Hague, who was using local language radio station to incite. That is what it was alleged. So the same power that the media has to escalate, the same power can be tapped to cool tensions and to enhance peace building.
All right, so what is it about community media that it's so influential for Kenyans? Is it the language, the fact that they talk about local issues? What is it that draws audiences to these local media stations?
I think generally we would say that the first thing is that, not just in Kenya, but I think that community media is closer to the people. And of course, language is a powerful tool. So there is the aspect of the fact that in times of conflict, of course, dialogue does play, and community media becomes ideal to enhance inter-community, intercultural dialogue, because as I've said, in Kenya, these conflicts and tensions tend to take an ethnic dimension. And these members from different ethnic communities, of course, have been neighbors forever, and they've not had issues until election time. So this community media becomes an ideal tool and to bring these communities together, to talk, to dialogue, to identify the main sources of these conflicts. And this is, and of course also the reach, as much as we may say that, now community, we have new media and we have all of these, but then in Kenya, and I assume that would be the case in most African communities, because the bulk of the population is rural communities. So radio still remains king, and people at the grassroots trust what the media says. In fact, a study by BBC that was carried in Kenya found that most members at the grassroots still regard what the media says as gospel truth. So if it is the media that is speaking to us, and it is speaking to us in our language, and it is talking about the things and it is calling us to talk, then I would say those are some of the strengths that community media holds.
Dr. Jacinta Mwende Maweo, thank you so much indeed for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You're still watching Media and Society on the SABC News Channel. We're starting to wrap things up, and just before we went to Kenya, we're talking about local government elections. So let's carry on with that conversation with my guests. I've still got Amy McGill, Mpho Mhlongo, and Feroz Sheikh. Let's start with you, Feroz. Local government elections are coming up. How are you going to be engaging your community? What have you been doing so far to help them be more aware of the issues in your local community?
Well, we've started already, Peter. Earlier on, I mentioned the Drive Time show, which concentrates on current affairs issues internationally. Our breakfast show is also current affairs, but it's mainly dealing with the community. So we deal a lot with the community news, and we actually started with the community, with the elections, actually, a couple of weeks ago. So we're chatting to all the parties that are concerned, from the big guys to the very small guys, that will be running in our communities to find out exactly how they're going to make a difference, what they intend doing. So it's already started. We have that in place, and obviously that will run right up to elections. Asking our listeners to register to go and vote in those elections. So it's already started. We have that in place, and we're chatting to these guys on a weekly basis.
So, being local government elections, do you discuss local issues as opposed to, because often, especially with us, it becomes a general conversation about service delivery. But maybe for you, it could be there's potholes on that road to Paarl or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to do that. That's part of it. That's definitely our discussion and topics with our areas. What is it that they're going to do that's going to make a difference in the specific communities that they're running in? You're talking about potholes. There's various other issues in there. Obviously, gangsters issues in our suburbs and our communities, and we want to know how they're going to make a difference. So we're giving them the opportunity, the platform, to share that with our listeners, so our listeners can make an informed decision when they go out and to vote on that day.
Amy, local government elections, I think this is probably the time that local media really has an opportunity to localize issues. For example, I'm not sure who my ward councillor is, and I suppose with community media, that's your job to introduce these people to your local community.
It absolutely is. It's a little worrying that you don't know who your ward councillor is. It is a huge part of what we do in the build-up to the elections. Obviously, education is a massive part of what we do, speaking to people so that they understand why it's important for them to vote, why it's important for them to know who their ward councillors are and what their ward councillors are responsible for doing. We cover a lot of those issues of potholes and crime and the things that really get to our communities. So we work with our ward councillors on a daily basis, and the ward councillors get a huge platform in our papers and on our website to tell us what they are going to be doing, what will be done differently. Obviously, we speak to the various political parties. We have to remember that for a lot of our readers, our newspapers, because they're free, they're knock and drop papers. Yeah. They are a lot of the time the only print media that is consumed by those people. So we take that job really, really seriously, that we make sure that people know what it is that they're voting for, who it is they're voting for, and what those parties are offering to them.
And also the nuts and bolts of how to and where to go.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. And Paul, you started talking about local government elections. Again, what conversations are you having, can you have, as we start to gear ourselves towards these elections, especially on a local level?
Unfortunately, with us as community, especially in Soweto, it doesn't necessarily just start now because it's election time. With service delivery, it's an ongoing issue every day, with people either not paying electricity, with water cutoffs, and with a lot of things that are happening. You mentioned your potholes. There's so many things that are happening with the community that require that from time to time we engage local, leadership so that they explain and educate the communities in terms of also what their roles and responsibilities are. Because people will say, oh, we are seeing something's being built. Our leader didn't tell us about it. Who's building this? Why is it that? So it is therefore not necessarily starting now. It's something that is an ongoing to ensure that the community understands the role of the leadership that is within the community. What do the councillors do? What are their roles? And as far as the work is done in the community, service delivery. So if you want to say, I don't have water in my ward, what does that mean? If there's electricity problem, if people are not paying their bills. So for us, it has something that has started a long time ago. In fact, for the past 26 years, we have been dealing with the same issues. Obviously, there has been a change, over a period of time, but we refocus, especially now that we are going to elections, because obviously people have been making promises. So people also want to know that you were a councillor for the past 5 years. What have you done? So we give our local councillors an opportunity to express themselves and say, what have they done? What are their plans going forward? And as I was saying, generally, our communities need to be educated in terms of elections, how important it is that people, register. We have started with IEC as well, doing voter education. So we are encouraging, especially the young ones who've never also registered before, to go on and register and make sure that they appear on the voters' roll. So then when the time comes for them to go to cast their votes, they know how and what, and also that they are registered as well. So for us, it's just broader than just now. It's an ongoing, in terms of our current affairs, there's always the issue of service delivery. It has been happening for a number of years. So it's an ongoing kind of education that it's part and parcel of our programming, in fact.
Thank you so much indeed. Mpho Mhlongo, CEO of Jozi FM, Amy McGill, editor of the Northcliffe Melville Times, and Feroz Sheikh, news editor at the Voice of the Cape. To all of you, thank you so much indeed for joining us. They were really great to engage with. And also to you at home, thank you for watching our show, Media Monitor, and we hope that you'll join us again at the same time next week. From me and the team, take care everybody, and please go and get vaccinated and wear a mask. Take care everyone. Bye-bye.